a look into the Heisman watch. This is something me and Eric are going to start doing once a week. Pretty much just a look at who the Heisman favorites are, and pretty much as time goes by, what we'll end up doing is picking who we think is going to win the Heisman and see who's right and see who's wrong. So instead of going 10 guys, because honestly, 10 guys is just too many guys to try and figure out in the world of college football, because in my opinion, after you got past
we don't roll that deep here.
Yeah, and not to mention, I feel like after you get past that number 5 spot, you really start meshing a lot of, you're really starting to split hairs amongst guys.
Yeah, to me, it really got hard to actually get to that number 5 guy. To me, there was really 4 guys that have stood out so far. And then a 5th guy I threw in there because, 1, I watch him play a lot, and 2, because he's got a really surprising stat I want to throw at you that I think warrants him being in the mix somewhere. So,
fair enough. Now, Eric is our college guy in comparison to me. I do try to act like I know what I'm talking about, but I got more faith in Eric's opinion than mine. So I'm going to start off with my number 5. We'll go backwards. We'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I'm going with Geno Smith at number 5. 2,414 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. But the 2 reasons I put him at number 5 and couldn't put him any higher, he only has 56 yards rushing with 1 rushing touchdown. And the past 2 games, him and his West Virginia team have just gotten demolished. So if we did this 2 weeks ago, he probably would be higher. But it's not 2 weeks ago, it's today. And to me, he's no better than number 5 in this watch. And you could technically probably even see him lower than 5 based on some people's opinions. So
my opinion, a little different. Number 5, I went with the quarterback from Alabama, A.J. McCarron.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he's even on your list at all. Probably not.
Actually, he is.
He is?
But he's higher.
Well, obviously, if you know, I had him at 5. I had him just behind Geno Smith. Just so you know, I do have Geno Smith at number 4 on my list right now, only because of the numbers he was able to put up early in the year. But I have McCarron at 5, and the interesting stat that I wanted to bring with McCarron, the guy has 16 touchdowns right now, 0 interceptions.
Yeah.
0.
1,476 passing yards.
That's, and the yards aren't that big in comparison to some of the other guys on the list. Some of the other guys have thrown for more yards, even thrown for more touchdowns. But the thing is that 0 interceptions is a big play. It means that you're not turning the ball over. You're not making mistakes. And he already has 2 games of 4 passing touchdowns each. So, averaging over 2 touchdowns a game, he's my number 5 right now. I think he can move up the list, but the Alabama runs the ball so well, I find at times it's hard for him to really shine. But I got him at number 5. And like I said, I got Geno Smith at 4 for all those stats that you had mentioned, and just because he had bigger numbers in bigger games, even though he's been down the last 2 games.
Well, what I'll do then is we'll just sort of jump, since we just talked about A.J. McCarron, he's my 4. So instead of me going into A.J. McCarron even more with my reasoning, you pretty much nailed on the head why A.J. McCarron's in the Heisman talk, but why he's not considered the Heisman favorite. So I'll just skip over him and I'll jump to my number 3. And at my number 3, I'm so torn. I'm going to go with Mr. Johnny Football from Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel. 1,956 passing yards, 14 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, 108 carries for 703 yards and 10 touchdowns. So I went Johnny Football. Got Johnny Football at number 3. I was him or the guy I got at number 2. I feel like I could flip-flop them and not really be wrong.
See, after watching Johnny Football, he's not even in my top 5 right now. At number 3, I actually have the kid Seth. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce this, but Doge, I believe, is his last name. He's a quarterback from Texas Tech. He's had now 2 games of 6 passing touchdowns and 1 game at 7 throwing touchdowns. So, in 3 games alone, the guy has put up, 19 touchdowns in 3 games. He's just beasted the ball.
And again, that's in a fantasy player.
That's in a conference where they play no defense. but he's played outstanding football, and he has Texas Tech ranked up in the top 15. So my pick is Seth Doge for number 3 in the Heisman watch.
I don't think that's a bad choice at all, my friend. I really don't. Now, what I will say, though, is I like Johnny Football, man. He's a guy that seems to make plays. I think as the season goes on, I think he's going to be better as the season wears on. I think he's a guy that, the guy, what's he, a freshman? Or I think maybe a redshirt sophomore. He's not even 20 years old. I mean, he's still got a lot of game to learn. The game, to me, will slow down for him as the season continues to wear on. And I think Johnny Football has the potential to be one hell of a quarterback in college. So that's my number 3. Why don't you give us your number 2? We'll let you start this one.
My number 2, Matt Barkley, USC. Starting to put up some bigger numbers. He was an early Heisman favorite as is before the USC happened to take that loss, but Matt Barkley is just playing great football. 6 touchdowns last week, 1 incompletion. He's really starting to step up his game, and in the next few weeks we'll really see what he can become, because he's going to have to face Oregon. He's going to have to face Notre Dame. He's going to have to face some teams that are going to give him some problems.
And we saw with that USC offense, that offensive line, when it got attacked by a good front seven, got owned. So when they played Stanford, man. Stanford, I know that was a good game, but
in
Stanford
my first
owned
Heisman
that
watch,
O-line.
I had to put Barkley because he is climbing back up the ranks, and nationally he is looked at the best quarterback in the nation. So, and the best NFL prospect to be coming out. All that being said, he's really developing into something, and I think if he can continue the trend of what he started this week, he'll start to move back up the ladder, because especially when it comes to Heisman, it's not so much what you do at the beginning of the year, it's the big games you can put up at the end of the year.
My number 2 is Braxton Miller, quarterback from Ohio State. I really considered Matt Barkley, but I don't know. I feel like he's got more help than everybody else. So for me, it was a little hard. I was actually between him and McCarron from Alabama. I was between the two, but the 16 TDs to no picks, I just had to. But Braxton Miller, Ohio State quarterback, I like 1,384 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, and then 959 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. Just sick. I mean, that's just sick to me. On a team that's not even bowl eligible, to go out there and just go out and rock. I mean,
it is, but it's, I don't know. He got banged up last week. I'm just not as high as on Braxton Miller just yet.
The kid's just impressed me so far this year, and I really didn't want to. I knew that if I just went and did blatant, average research, I probably would have ended up with almost an identical top 5 as you, and I wanted to try to go a little bit different. So I actually had a feeling Braxton Miller was a guy that you wouldn't put on your list, and I was like, you know what? Why not? Why not go with somebody that's put up great stats? And
we got a number 1 though.
I think we got the same guy.
Klein?
Yeah.
Kansas State, he's been a monster.
You can't, with everything I just said about not trying to do the same thing as you, I'd just be stupid not to put him up there as the number 1 option right now. I just would be. And even
he's playing great football.
It's unbelievable. Right now, so far, he's pretty much 1,400 passing yards, 10 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, 551 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns. So 24 total touchdowns. Him and Johnny Manziel are the only 2 with 24, and then you got Geno Smith with 27 total touchdowns. Outside of those would be the 3 highest when it comes down to total touchdowns. The total yards, it's a whole different thing. I can't really do all that math off the top of my head right now, but like you said, he's just playing lights out. And yes, it does help that especially last week, you go against the West Virginia defense that's just a joke. But I don't care. The guy's putting up numbers, and he's not hurting his team. Only 2 picks. For the amount of time the guy's got the ball in his hands,
yeah,
I'll take that. I could be okay with that. That's for sure. So, I mean, if he stays on the rate he's at, I don't fathom anybody really catching the guy. I just don't. But since we're bringing up his name and we got another minute before I want to hit another music break, I want to ask you real quick, out of these 5 guys, because I mean, pretty much, let's see, all 5 of my guys are quarterbacks. Every one of them.
Mine too.
All 5 of your guys are quarterback. Take Matt Barkley out of the equation, because we all understand he's the, AKA best prospect coming out. No matter what any of these guys do, most NFL scouts are going to say Matt Barkley is the best quarterback coming out. So outside of Barkley, which one of these guys do you think has the best potential to be an NFL quarterback? Not saying make a guarantee, just from what you know and what you've watched of all these guys. Now, obviously, some of them are still 2 years away from even going into the NFL. But I still think it's a valid question considering they're all quarterbacks. And if you're a quarterback in college, you're going to do everything you can to be a quarterback in the NFL. It's that simple. So I'm curious to know, in your opinion, who has the best opportunity to be an NFL quarterback?
I'm immediately going to eliminate Geno Smith. Because Geno Smith to me is just too much of a mobile quarterback. He's not as accurate. When it comes down to being a pocket NFL passer to being that prototypical NFL guy, I would probably go with McCarron because he's playing in a pro-style offense. He is playing with a coach who's not only coached in the pros, but, been there for a long time. Just probably would be a little more NFL ready, but something's also telling me that I don't really think you can go wrong with Klein. I mean, the guy seems like he could do a little bit of everything. And to me, he kind of seems a little bit Rodgers-esque, Aaron Rodgers-esque.
Okay.
Of that he can move when he wants to move. I mean, this week he had 41 rushing yards, but he had 4 rushing touchdowns. So that means that in the red zone, he wasn't just throwing the ball away, or he wasn't throwing incompletions or interceptions. He wasn't forcing things. He was seeing what the defense gave him and then going off of that. And to me, that says that maybe he's got some smarts to him. Maybe he can step up and play at the next level. Because it's not just about throwing up numbers. It's about doing what's best for the team, and I feel like he kind of does that. So, I mean, they would probably be...
Well, he's got the body frame for it. I mean, Klein's 6'5", 226 pounds. And that's the one thing about college quarterbacks that a lot of people get worried about. Like, you look at Denard Robinson. Look, there's no question that if you put a football in Denard Robinson's hands in the NFL, the guy would make a couple plays for you every game. But can he do it at quarterback? I don't think so. He'd get lost. Like, I know everybody's on Russell Wilson for being too short, and Russell Wilson's had some good games and some bad games, made some big plays, made some bad plays, whatever. The last thing you want is a quarterback that's so small that, imagine if he went to a team that had to play Ndamukong Suh. After what you saw Suh did to Cutler last night, Suh could bench press Denard Robinson. You know what I mean? But
that's why Denard Robinson's not going to be a good NFL quarterback.
Oh, and I agree. That's the point I'm trying to get to, is the fact that sometimes you got to pay attention to more than just their stats and look and be like, all right, well, body for, come on, 6'5", 260 or 230 or whatever.
You got McCarron's stats there or no?
I can in a split second. So Klein, like I said, 6'5", 226. McCarron, give me 1 sec. I just got to get to Bama's roster. And McCarron, let's find him. All right, AJ McCarron is 6'4", 210. Same idea. Nice size body frame for an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for. Like you said, with McCarron running a pro-style offense, that might not be a bad idea. Klein gives you sort of a dual threat type of thing, but you can tell in college they run this guy like a fullback sometimes when they're in the red zone. Like they don't treat him like, well, we got to keep your arm healthy so you can throw the ball. What's that tell you? Is it the style of the offense, or is it the kind of player he is and he's not that good of a passer? You don't know. The coaches that watch this guy every day in practice, that have game film on him, they're the ones that got a better opinion on that than me and you can have. But what I do know is that I think the two guys you named would probably be the two guys I would name as well.